Hey guys, this is miicrow here. I think I'm gonna start getting into build guides, and it seems like the most popular request is healer at the moment, so we're gonna start with that one. I've mentioned it a bit, but New World Buddy's incredibly difficult to use right now because if you look at something like a life staff, right? There's like multiple types of life staff perk pools all tied to the same name, which makes it really difficult to select the right one to actually use for a build guide. So I'm gonna do this a little bit differently and kind of do it live, and then do it and kind of explain the thought process of everything. So in terms of healers, generally speaking, your issue with current patches won't be at the actual heal amount. It will be with how often you can cast your heals. So CDR is incredibly important. I'm gonna do this build guide assuming that you don't want to use T1 refreshing because that doesn't seem like that should be in the game. But there is a legitimate like reason or like consideration to just use T1 refreshing on T2 armor. I assume that's getting patched out of the game like the other bugs and exploits are related to that right now. So let's talk about like life staff first, I guess, and like what's your perk pool and what you're really looking for. So we've already established for other things that it's possible to get perks that have four of these fixed ones and then two of the flex. But let's look at the fixed perks and just see which ones are just generally speaking good. So Resurgence 2 kills and group heals gain stacks of bless, increase outgoing healing by 1% per stack. This is generally a really good perk for PvE. So like this is a perk that like I would want if I was doing a PvE heal thing. Desperate Prayer, while you're below 50% mana, your heals are 15% more effective. This is like RNG if this is actually going to be active or not. In my opinion, you can't really control that one. I don't know if it's necessarily insane, but it's a way to increase healing. There's Savior, where your healings increase if you heal a target below 50% HP. I think that's actually a pretty good perk. Going down this list, there's not too much else. The unfortunate, well, I guess you could do Bless and you could use the T1 mod, but we're gonna pretend that doesn't exist for now because I feel like that's just gonna should not be in the game. Um, but so using like the methods that we're supposed to have, I think these two perks for heals are like really good. A Desperate Prayer is debatable. I don't think that's necessarily best. From there, the way that I would go, uh, is I would probably want a diamond on your heal gear, so you'd want an empty gem slot to roll, and then after that, so this is like our last two perks, you have options here. So in terms of like what you'd actually want on healer gear, you could go for like keen. I mean, you can go for like one of these heal perks if you want to. So fortified sacred ground kind of sucks. The old fortified sacred ground is good, but again, assuming that we're not using T1 gear because that probably shouldn't be in the game and it's probably gonna get taken out soon. Uh, so let's not consider that perk. Divine's Embrace, it gives targets grit and it gives them stamina regen, which isn't terrible. Uh, Splash of Light. If you remove debuffs, they get a heal over time. Like that actually seems pretty solid to me because it's like you're gonna be healing a lot of people with that. It's usually pretty consistent. So like this is a perk that I think is just generally good. Mending Protection is something you usually see on AoE healers, so it's a little bit better. Like mending, like it's weird because like if you're a healer, you have different skills if you're in PvE versus PvP. In PvP right now, there's like so many different kinds of healers. There's AoE healers, there's single target healers, there's the healers from last patch that only had one single target and had Sacred Ground and had Clap, which are more of a hybrid role. Like those are like your three like main kinds. So like your skill perk will depend on like what kind you're going. But to me, like in terms of like, skill perks, like which ones look good, a Purity of Light seems like it's just generally decent because it's a cleanse and it's going to heal over time. So it's just like consistent value. Accelerating Light's Embrace is really funny, but I don't think it's like actually that good. Keen Beacon's like a pretty solid one in terms of PvE. Mending Protection's a good way to increase outgoing healing, but the thing is like it's not a very commonly taken skill in terms of PvP. So that's something to consider. And then the other slots that you want for here is you want to fill them out with defensive slots. So Sacred, I guess, is an optional thing. Or maybe we should look at infixes real quick and just make sure that there's not like an insane like healer related infix. So let's look at the different equipment sets and see if there's anything here that just like kind of jumps out at us from a life staff standpoint, I guess. Or maybe we could actually see this from New World database. There should be a spot that shows the infixes. Yeah, like these. So casting Light's Embrace on a down player will revive them. I mean, this is insane for PvE. This is definitely something that you'd want. So if you can get this on a life staff for PvE, that would be ideal. PvP, let's see if there's any others that are good. Every 10 seconds, damaging an enemy will cast Chain Lightning. Okay, you probably don't want that. Self-casting Light's Embrace will cleanse the player, make them immune to debuffs for 2 seconds. I mean, that's interesting. I don't know if it's great, but it's interesting. We don't care about crit chance either. So all these like infixes like kind of suck for life staff, so really wouldn't worry about them too much. Uh, the revive one is really good for PvE, so I would take that in that context. In PvP, I probably wouldn't. And then like the legacy perk is like acutely anointed, which is just a little bit more outgoing healing, but it's probably not worth a slot. So you'd probably just round those slots out with defensive perks is what I would be thinking. So like Enchanted Ward, like you can go for Elemental Aversion if you want to. Then there's some other like weird ones. In terms of what you'd want on your gear right now, I feel like there's a couple different ways to build it, and it's just really dependent on like what you are thinking. The most common way to build it, and the way that you're probably going to see 90% of healers build out their healer set, is if you go to where's weight class? There's weight class. People are just going to run Nimble Coat, and they're just going to go light on everything else. I mean, Nimble Coat is like honestly kind of amazing, so I don't really blame them. Your secondary with Nimble Coat, it could be Void Gauntlet if you're going for more AoE. It could be Flail if you're more PvE oriented. It could be Rapier or it could be Hatchet. Like those are your main four. I think all those are generally fine. I guess the other thing we didn't really talk about too, sorry, this is a little out of order. We didn't talk about Life Staff artifacts. Life Staff artifacts, while they're good, I think it's generally better to have an offhand artifact. So for PvE, you want the Void Gauntlet that has the Rend on Essence Rupture. Like, that's the very common one. And in PvP, like, I would think you would want Hecta just for more CDR and the Hatchet. But if you're going Rapier, I could see you going a Life Step artifact. Like, Life Support probably is a better perk than a Divine, or, like, than a Diamond in general. So, like, there's an argument to, like, use this instead. It has Resurgence, which is better for PvE than PvP, but I guess it's okay for PvP. Has Savior, which is a good perk, has a skill slot, so that's not that bad. Hecta has Savior. Light's Touch is decent if you do heavy attacks. It's not common for healers to do heavy attacks as a gem slot, a skill slot, and a defensive. I mean, honestly, Hecta's like really good for a budget life staff. Like it's just like very, very solid. It's just not common to see healers do heavy attacks unless they're an AoE healer, in which case it's a little bit more common because the light attacks give you more CDR per second, and people with life staffs are usually looking for more CDR rather than maximizing each individual heal's output. So that's something that's noteworthy there. Okay. So going back to armors, we talked about this a little bit, but just in general, Nimble Coat's probably going to be your best bet. I could totally see some people like going for other things in light though. Like Featherweight, I think is still a very underrated perk. The thing that might make Featherweight interesting is if you stack Freedom with Featherweight, you could still get up to like 75% duration reduction, so that 3 seconds that's like getting applied to you. If you had maximum freedom stacks, right? That actually would be like, okay, I did this backwards, but if we could do it that way. It would actually only last for like 0.75 seconds, which is like not that long of a time, so there's like a pretty minimal downside for using Featherweight. So I could see some people like still using Featherweight and like Kill Squad and things like this. The other thing that I think is really underrated, and honestly, this is probably my preferred way to build stuff out for PvP healers, is probably going Koya at this point. The reason why Koya is really interesting is it opens up your artifact chest piece slot, and then you could use the overcharged chest piece, which is just kind of insane. Let me go back to here and or sorry, not overcharged. The elementally charged chest piece is just kind of insane. So elementally charged chest piece, you can get this from the Catacombs vendor. It gives you 5% ABS when you have no elemental charges, so you literally just slot one of these, you don't take the set at all, and you just take 5% less damage to everything elemental. That's both ranged and physical, so it will work versus Void Blades. It just seems like a very, very solid thing to go, so by going into Koya, you can effectively make yourself a lot tankier, and you can also allow yourself to grab these other artifacts. In the past, Koya's was like really bad because it's only applied to ranged physical attacks. Now it's all ranged attacks, so it's actually a really, really big buff. And then it honestly comes with really good perks too. Like Enchanted Ward is a really good perk for a healer. Shirking Energy is a really good perk, and the last slot's a defensive slot. So like Koya's stonks are like really, really up right now, and it's just something I would recommend. But if you want to do maximum CDR, maximum output for healing, you probably want to go Nimble Coat. So it's like you have two options there. In terms of what you're generally looking on gear, we can look at that too. So you generally want to be light as a healer. In terms of like what perks are really good, you're generally just looking for a bunch of defensives. We could see if there's any fixed what that are worth taking though. Lifestealer's Drought's insane for some people, probably not insane for heals. I actually before we get into this, we probably want to be talking about infixes because there are some like really really good healer related infixes. Uh, but they're kind of hard to get. I don't think we have focus set in the game, but you could see some of them on the focus set. So there's one, and you can get these infixes in the game even though the focus set isn't out yet. So immune to crowd control debuffs for 1 second, 3 seconds with the 300 focus after a healing cast is interrupted. Like that's like pretty nice. It's just the set hasn't been added to the game yet, unfortunately. As like we look here and then we go to the drop table and it's not in the game. So you might have to like redo your healer set later on when they actually add this, which hopefully is soon. Uh, Focus Fortify is an insane perk as well. So if you don't want to go like really defensive with that other chest piece, I would generally recommend picking up Focus Fortify on your chest piece. And it's like another thing it's pointing towards Koya maybe potentially being good and not wanting Nimble Coat, because then you're able to run this chest piece as well. This seems like it's kind of insane. Noteworthy that it only works off a clap and single target heals. So if you're an AoE healer, you just don't run this. But that's kind of interesting to me. There's nothing there. Healing a target outside of Sacred Ground or Beacon grants 10% haste for 4 seconds. I mean, that's just like you use clap and you just give a bunch of people haste, right? Like that's like a pretty consistent infix that's like also pretty good. And this one doesn't have an infix either. So, I mean, there's a few infixes there. Are they worth taking? I would think that the chest piece is debatable, and then the pants are pretty good. Uh, the focus determinations may be okay for kill squad healer, like for PvP focus, like if you're getting CC'd a lot, it's okay. But those are the main ones I would look at. When this focus set comes out, it's it's not bad, so it's probably worth getting just because it has, cooldown reduction on a heal. So it's just you're gonna passively be getting heals off of this. So I think it's probably worth it. But I'm not 100% sure right now if it will be worth it in the long term. It just seems like it would be generally good. So that's like the main thing for infixes on armor. If we go back to looking at armor pieces, sorry, this organization's a little bit weird because it's the first time that we've done a build guide like this and just like kind of see what gear perks you have access to. In terms of your fixed perks, conditionings are always okay. Shirking 4, I don't think is that good in light. So I don't think you're actually looking for a lot of these fixed perks on here. They actually seem kind of mid. So like maybe pick up a conditioning, maybe picked up a prolonged favor if you want to do some cheesy stuff. So the cheesy thing I'm talking about is for prolonged favor. If some heal over times like Healing Breeze are considered to be a buff, most of them aren't considered to be buffs, but there's a few that are. So if you stack 5 prolonged favor, you increase the duration over time of your heal over times by literally 50%. So it's like kind of insane. So which effectively means that like you have more healing uptime, right? Which is like the main thing that healers are looking for. So it's like I think this is probably worth running. I can make a separate video on like everything prolonged favor works with if you guys are interested, because it's a little bit complicated, but it works versus some heal effects. So that's the noteworthy thing there. And then after that, like all you're looking for is a gem slot and a bunch of defensives, right? You're looking for like 3 defensive slots and a gem slot, which basically just screams craft your gear and force a gem slot into it and hope that you get triple defensive, or go into M1s through M3s and get your perfect gear, or just like don't worry about like doing that. Save yourself some time. Just pick up prolonged favor, pick up a conditioning. It doesn't really matter what kind of conditioning, but ideally like slash or thrust are like probably the best ones. Fire's okay. A void is also okay, or abyssal. So those are like your top 4, and you're probably okay with that. If you get shirking fort, that's fine. And then in terms of your open mods, what you're looking for, you're generally looking for defensive mods that help versus melee attacks, or you're helping for things that are like anti-CC oriented. So there is another way to build healer that I don't think you should go, but you could go Jin with Invig and literally just be immune to disease, so you just have maximum healing output all the time. This effectively might be stronger than stacking Bless in situations where you are being consistently diseased, because if you keep the disease off of you, that's effectively like you're healing for more, right? So it's like that's something that could be low-key good. But in general, I'd be thinking like Freedom to be like anti-CC oriented. Freedom works versus a lot of CC effects like Vines. It doesn't work versus staggers, but it's still useful. I'd be thinking like elemental version if you're getting hit by range players. Physical version is like also decent, but if you're going Koya, you already have a lot of this built in your kit, so really wouldn't worry about it too much. And then in terms of other stuff, Enchanted Ward is pretty good. Grit Ward is actually kind of crazy right now because you could pop a grit potion and that just gives you passive grit. So it's like if someone dives you, instead of healing yourself with a heal pot, you could just pop a grit potion and then you just trigger all your Grit Ward to be active for the next 10 seconds. And I think, is Grit Ward considered to be a buff? Let me see that. I said that we wouldn't talk about Prolonged Favor, and here I am talking about Prolonged Favor. Or not Grit Ward, Grit Potion. Of course, it shows the Battle Royale one. That's funny. Okay, it doesn't have the buff tag. So it won't get extended by Prolonged Favor. Okay, at least that's somewhat balanced. But Grit Potion, something to look out for there. That would just be generally good. Or Grit Wards is something to look out for there if you want to use Grit Potions. If you don't want to use Grit Potions and use that tech, I'd look for like Enchanted Ward, which is okay. It's not as good. And then something else like Elemental Aversion, Physical Aversion, like something in those kind of lines. But you're just looking for ways to mitigate damage incoming to you. If you want, and then the other perk I guess that is worth talking about is like Bless, which is not showing up here. Or is it called Bless? There's some sort. Is it Sacred? No, I think it's Sacred or something. But I don't know why it's not showing up here. But there's a defensive mod that you could slot. Am I in game right now? I could probably just show this in game. Because I remember where it is on the TP. But there's a defensive mod that just like increase your outgoing healing, and that's probably just like worth picking up in general. So that's something that's worth going over. I think it's called Sacred now. Yeah, it's Sacred too. Yeah, you could just slot this on gear. This is socketable with a defensive charm. So just slot this on your gear, and you're just like generally chilling there. So this is one slot, right? We have our two slots if you don't want to farm mutations. You have the debatable infix slot, and then you have your defensive slots between like talking about some of those perks that we mentioned, like Invig, Freedom. You can go pure defensive with Enchanted Ward. Like it's basically you just want to use the thing that mitigates the damage that's the most annoying to you is how I would think about it. Like everyone's gonna have a little bit of a different thing. For me, like as a tank slash CC player in general, I hate dying to like just being diseased over and over and like not being able to control my character in that regard and just like poofing. So that would be my favorite perk, but I know a lot of people like Freedom so that they can like control their character in terms of anti-CC effects. So that's something that could be useful, and then this could be useful as well. Let's move on to jewelry though, because that's our last thing to kind of talk about. Earrings are very funny. Earrings are like the one perk in the game where you might not actually like you might just want a 4 fixed perk earring, and that might be ideal. Healing part is 100% a lock. You definitely want that. Fortifying Toes is 100% a lock because you run mana potions as a healer. Uh, I think Refreshing Toast is probably a lock. And then from here, you have some options. Refreshing Move, honestly, isn't... Or sorry, not Refreshing Toast. Refreshment is a lock. And then you have some options. So let's see what else we can get. We can get Refreshing Toast at that point. We can get Regenerating at that point. Or we can get a Gem Slot. So those are like probably the two main ones I would consider. I guess Nimble is also a thing too. You don't... I don't think Nimble's as necessary with anyone personally, but I know some people swear by it. So that's something else that's kind of like noteworthy, I guess. But these three perks are definitely ones you want. Gem slot would be really nice as like the second to last slot, and then you have a fixed slot here that you just throw on another defensive. Moving on to rings. Rings. I guess I didn't look at earring infixes too. We can take a quick look at them and see if there's any that are worthy, but I don't think there's any. I don't think there's any. Yeah, no, I'm not seeing ones that are that good. Like you do wellness, but like, yeah. So let's just not even talk about that. You could also do like Justice, I guess, if you want to, is like a good budget one because there's Healing Heart and Refreshment. So you're missing out on Fortifying Toast, which is honestly like a really big perk. But it's decent overall. Like it's still like this is a good setup just to have. It has an extra defensive slot too, so it's just good on a budget. If you're going to the ring side, These rings, they technically do have some like interesting effects, so some of these might be worth it. One of these is like when you're exhausted, gain uninterruptible, so you can't be pulled when you're exhausted, which is like kind of nice. Um, I guess I didn't really talk about like second wind set too for armor, but there's a leg piece which is like when you stand out it cleanses a bunch of stuff, and that might be worth considering too. This gearing system's honestly really complicated. It's kind of hard to talk about like what's best in slot in every single scenario. I don't think any of these ring perks are really insane. Like when you get exhausted, get uninterruptible is probably the best one that you probably can get from an infix standpoint. So let's just like look at earrings in general and just see like what their perk bucket is and like if anything's really that useful to you. I think the main thing that I've seen is there's like no, it's an amulet perk. This is just like this increases your damage. The amulet perk's insane though. Um, so I'll get into it in a bit. But you can. I don't think any of these like fixed perks are really that good for my heal standpoint. I guess Purifying Heart is definitely good. Actually, I changed my mind. When you cleanse something, you heal, and Healing Breeze. Like, but all three of these are good. I think Purifying Mind is debatable. So you could play with those. And then in terms of your other perks, the perks that are more fixed, like you just slot more defensives on there. It's like pretty simple. I haven't really talked about PvE at all. In PvE, you definitely want the Enchanted Ward. I've been kind of talking about PvP in terms of gear, but you don't it doesn't really matter as much in terms of like what defensives you're doing in PvE. You just need Enchanted Ward, and then you can go like offensive stuff and just throw on a Void Blade and just call it at the end of the day. Um, and then from here, I just fill it out with defensive slots. In terms of your amulet, there actually are some like pretty good amulet infixes too. Like when you're silenced, you get 10% absorption. I think silence is going to be a big part of the PvP meta, so this might be something that's like worth farming in terms of an infix. Um, Other stuff, not as insane, but there are some like insane amulet perks that I kind of wanted to go over. So the main one that is absolutely crazy is the one that I think it's enchant something, or I forget exactly what it's called, but there's a PvP oriented one. Maybe I could find it on New World database. That this is not really what I'm looking for, is it? I know it's generated, and then it will have PvP in the description. And you can see from here if it shows up. Um, there it is. Enchanted Resilience. This is the one that drops in the PvP track that's like kind of crazy on those specific amulets. So it reduces basic attacks dealt to you by 10%, but increases the attacker's ability damage. I think this one's kind of crazy because when people chase you, usually their damage is from their attacks in this game. It's not really from abilities. So this is one I probably look to get. In terms of everything else, I think you're just picking up fixed perk slots for protections, and it's like really, really simple for amulets. So I really want to overthink it too much. Just grab your protections that you think are useful. That's usually going to be Thrust, Slash, and probably Fire. Maybe Arcane, maybe Void. Like those are like your three that you're kind of debating between, and then your last slot is going to be a fixed slot. Um, or you can drop one of those protections for a gem slot. I think a protection is probably a little bit better. And then your last slot is a fixed slot, so it's just another defensive. You could replace any of those defensives for skills if you want to, but I think it's generally better to use skills on weapons. In terms of your offhands that you're looking at for healer, you can do flail. I think this is decent for PvE. If you do, you probably want to do Power Stone, which doesn't have the best perks, but has a really good unique ability. You could also, if you are going PvE oriented with Void Gauntlet, there is the Fracture Void Gauntlet that's insane for PvE. So this is probably the one that I'd recommend. It boosts Essence Rupture and just is like very good from that standpoint. In terms of your other options, Ice Gauntlet's not really been meta for a long time, but you could go it technically. I just slap a lot of defensives on here and pick ones that feel good to you. You could go for Hatchet, which is probably the more likely meta one in terms of PvP, in which case you probably want Freya. Freya is interesting because it actually gives you CDR, and CDR is like at a very big premium right now. So, especially because they got rid of a lot of it on the Hatchet. So that's something I would look at. It doesn't really have defensive slots, which kind of sucks, but the unique ability is so good that it might make up for it. Otherwise, you want a unique Hatchet with like more defensive slots. I really wouldn't worry about the gem slot on the Hatchet because you're not looking to do damage if you could avoid it. And then Rapier is something similar. or it's just like you'd want defensive slots at that point. Like you don't really care about any of these unique rapiers from artifacts, so you just want to spam defensive slots and not really think about it too hard. But that's like the high level overview of what like I do on a healer. The TLDR is like stack defenses, stack your sacreds on your armor. Your and then your life staff's pretty self-explanatory for now. Rings are kind of not really that insane, but amulets are the part where you really it's the you make or break. If you get the cursed enchantment thing where it's like you take 10% less damage to autos, like I think you're just generally going to be pretty tanky. If you don't get that, you're going to be pretty squishy. So like that's the big perk that you're looking for. Everything else is like a little bit optional. Earrings are also have a lot of good perks, like the healing heart perk might make it so that you don't necessarily have to use stone form as a healer anymore. And if you don't have to use stone form as a healer, a lot of stuff opens up in terms of like build possibilities for your heart rune, and that's going to have a lot of like extra utility. But that's something that kind of remains to be seen and kind of has to be tested. I would just look to try to get those perks in general. But let me know what you guys think. I'm sorry it's not all on New World Buddy, but I have not figured out how to effectively choose gear for the new build system in New World Buddy because it's just like very, very weird to pick out gear sets when everything is named the same. Like I know there's some tricks, it hasn't quite gelled for me as nicely. But that's like a rough idea of what I would do for healer. If you have any specific questions, let me know in the comments and I can try to answer them to my best of my ability. But I think that's like generally what you're looking to do, and I'll see you guys later.